also in the SADC region and many other parts of the country. He is Reverend Mauj Pataki. As we will be starting with the program, I should be able to invite one leader of the association, Mr. Martin Kubiana, to welcome you all. Mr. Kubiana, can you take over, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chidi. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Martin Kubiani, one of the associate founding members of the Africana Justice Association. Tonight's platform, the Kgoro Conversations. Those who have joined us before should be familiar with this program. It is one of the flagship programs of the Africana Justice Association. As most of you would know from the African perspective, Kgoro is an important institution within the African context. This is an institution where normally people from the communities would sit and talk amongst themselves to tackle important matters specific to that community. And so with this Kgoro conversation, we aim to get Africans talking amongst themselves. And one of the reasons why we came up with this initiative is that we don't speak amongst ourselves. We don't talk about issues that are affecting us. And in most cases, the issues affecting us are common, but we don't sit down and talk about ourselves to find resolutions to these issues. So, ladies and gentlemen, without taking much of your time, welcome. Please feel free to participate. I should mention that we are an apolitical organization. We don't affiliate with any political organization. So please feel free to interact, feel free to, as you know, in the Kgoro, we don't always agree with each other. Let's engage. The important thing is that we talk amongst ourselves and engage amongst ourselves. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Mr. Madume Chidi, I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Kubiana. Welcome, Mr. Pataki.
Thank you very much, Madume, and Martin as well.
Yes, and it's an honor for us to have you this evening. We ordinarily invite people who might give wisdom perspective on a variety of issues. So we thought it proper that on a topic such as this one, we should have you, Muruti, this evening. We hope that you enjoy this session as much as we are certainly going to enjoy it.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation as well.
Right. Can we start here? Who is Ndate Pataki?
Well, I'm a boy who grew up in the area of Rampahlele, and that was about 58 years ago. And I did all the things that young people would naturally do. Went to school, took care of the cattle at home, and did all the kind of funny things that young people do. And I was introduced to church in my very early age, and I stuck to it up to today. Same church, I never hop-knocked and moved from one to the other. I studied for education at the University of the North then, and later theology. And that is where I really found my anchor. And from there, I've worked for South African Council of Churches, as most people would know. And that took me to places around the world where I have been. And I grew up not knowing just one denomination, but just becoming just one church, a big church. And yeah, now I've opened up my own leadership foundation where I do ethics and leadership after I retired from the SACC, because once you become the General Secretary of SACC, you hit the ceiling. So once your contract ends up, you must get something to do. And basically that's who I am. I am now a grandfather of one daughter. I've got two children, a son and a daughter, and my wife as well, with family.
Right, nice summary. Thanks. You can see the importance of this session, talking to a former leader of the South African Council of Churches. I understand, Muruti, recently you made a presentation to a body hire to our local Council of Churches. Can you take our participants through the presentation?
Well, I was a co-participant at the World Council of Churches that took place in Germany, Karlsruhe, just about 2 weeks ago, where I participated in conversations, various conversations, one of which was the conversation on Ubuntu, which I co-did with the Reverend Dr. Mbecheni. And we have found a lot of wisdom in that kind of discussion. The approach was for us to find out what the concept of Ubuntu actually means and what are its origins. And the good thing is that when you talk to world leaders and you are in foreign lands and you are talking about something that was born and bred in Africa, that makes you a focal point, because people want to learn more about something that originated where you actually are. And when we were there, we emphasized that Ubuntu, it's a social anthropological kind of concept. It's a way of life for African people. You do not need to learn Ubuntu as an African person. You inherit Ubuntu, you grow inside the bellies of what Ubuntu is, because Ubuntu is not discovered. It's there. Just when you are born in Africa, you find it. You would know that when you drop to life as an African person, in ancient times, there are midwives who were not even trained scientifically to be midwives, but they were able to receive you as a baby because they have been so trained by the values that are African. So if a woman goes into labor, you do not need orthodox medical science to see that this woman is going to labor. The elders, the elderly women around would just know that now it is time for her to go into labor, and all sorts of things will guide them, the stars, the moon, and all those things. And using that kind of knowledge, they would come and sit this woman through labor pains, and the baby would drop, and they will know what to do with the umbilical cord, all those processes of bringing the baby. They would know how to react to blood, and they would know how to put the baby safely once the baby arrives, and they would also know what to do to the mother. So Ubuntu, you born into it. Once you drop, you born into it. You don't have to learn it from school. Unfortunately, as time evolved, we lost it here and there along the way.
In summation.
Well, I was saying in summation, once you drop into it, these same people who have come to receive you will then take you throughout the next steps of your growth. And they are not doing it for a fee. They are not paid to do it. They are doing it because it's a communal relational concept of bringing somebody up. And therefore, it has got nothing to do with monetary value.
And thanks Muruti for that perspective. I mean, it's quite interesting. I attended some session at a book launch last week Friday, At birth, former Judge President Ngwebe was saying, a message goes out in the neighborhood, there's a baby born, and when the baby is strong, 3 months later, there will be a function
Yes. Yes.
And from your experience and how important that aspect is in our lives, can you take us through that?
Well, it is important because you are being initiated into the community. You see, you are now brought into the communal way of living, that you are not mom and dad's child. You are the child of the village. And therefore the village would come out, do rituals, African rituals, name you among other things that will be happening there. And from there you belong, in other words. And that is why we say Ubuntu. With Ubuntu, you exist because you belong. You unlike in the European sense where people would say, I exist and therefore I am, or I am because I exist. We say in Africa, I am because I belong. Where do you belong? You belong to these large family of communal relations. And this community would then show you that they are your teachers. Others will concentrate on teaching you about this and that, values, customs of the cultural, milieu, faith issues. They will all participate, and each one would have a role to play, including even those who will take you, for lack of better word, your pediatricians, the people who would make sure that as a child you receive that medical care, that health care. They will take you through all that. You will not have anyone who is not there. In other words, all the faculties of life will be represented.
This, by the way, it's a melting pot, and we've got people from different backgrounds. And Mruti, for us to have a proper conversation, let's get our participants involved in the talk. I'm going to invite Ndate Moyaha. I know he was there when the book was launched last week. Do you have any perspective, Mr. Moyaha, on what Mruti has just indicated? Because I mean, we can learn from different perspectives. I agree with him, but you might have a different experience. Can you come through, Mr. Moyaha?
Thanks a million times for the opportunity. And I think I agree with Mruti to an extent. The communal thing that we have lost, that brought us up, that made us who we are, has unfortunately evaporated, primarily because we have commercialized everything. And everything is about commerce, is about money. And we have more become self-centered than even the other people-centered. We don't think we can be better by helping carry the other person, and then we will be better up together. That's not what we do. I think to a greater extent, capitalism has eroded into our way of life. And we have abandoned quite a number of things. You just don't even know where to start to correct these things. But I agree, we need to go and just back to our roots is the solution to all the problems that we inherit that we have. I think that's my 2 cents contribution to this. Thanks, Mruti, for this opportunity as well.
Mm.
No, it's not a 2 cent contribution. It's much valuable. Yeah.
Yes. As I said, Matume, that even the midwives were not doing it for a pay. That's where Pat Moyaha comes in. That today, every other thing that we do has got monetary value. Now, for African people, Ubuntu has got no more monetary value. When you come into the home state to assist, or you come into the home state to teach, to model, and all that, you're not doing it for money, because it has been understood that Ubuntu is about, as we said in Kgoro last week, motho ke motho ka batho. You are never whole until other people participate in your life, in your upbringing. But money, materialism, consumerism does not have room for that, because you work to the clock. Now, there are people who say African people are backward because they use the sun as their time measure, and therefore they don't observe time. When we say 6 o'clock, they come at 6:15 o'clock, or they come at 6:30. There is nothing wrong about that. Somebody made it look like it is wrong, but because there is in life, the values are never wrong. What is wrong? It's when you do not regard the other as a person. You regard the other as a foreigner, or you regard the other as a stranger. That becomes wrong. But the values of Africanness, even of measuring time, that a meeting that is said to be starting at 6 and it started at 6:30, I've always argued, we are putting a lot of pressure on ourselves, because we know that once we meet, we will finish our business. Now, the Western style of doing things is that they say between 6 and 7. So when it's 7, they actually rise and move. Look at the churches. Where we do church as an African community, we don't mind when it stops. We mind when it starts, and we'll go on and on. But in Western style of doing church, when it's 7 to 8 o'clock arrives and we must all walk, they will start walking out of the church. So we're not putting emphasis on the timeline. We're putting emphasis on the content that we shall deal with on the day.
And the content we should deal with even tonight. I was privileged to have access to the document which based the presentation at your, in Germany. And one of the things, Muruti, you indicated is that Molomohoeja Oromo.
Yes.
The direct English translation is when one must eat, the other, envies and would want to eat. Now, it's a very important principle. There is huge poverty. There's, lack of opportunities, inclusive of unemployment and inequality. How did we get it wrong when we have such a great principle?
We get it wrong because we don't believe in ourselves. We get it wrong because we have come to accept that all African, all blackness is backward. Somebody has convinced us so, and we have come to accept that as a conviction. Now, as I said, there is just so much wealth. If we say Mulomo Awija Oroa Omumwe, we are actually addressing hunger, which our government today is trying to address, but they can't get it right. Because what has been entrenched is private eating. You are only, there are people today, you believe me, Matume, who would not even want to eat with their mothers. They would only want to eat with their friends, or they would only want to eat with their children. Now, in African sense, you can eat and sleep well if your community, let alone your mother or father or children, if the community that you are staying within goes hungry, you can't. I had a great-grandfather, who stayed in a communal place called Sipitsi, just outside Ramasemola. people, even today, the premier of this province, Stan Matavata, grew up in that community, where he also tells me, your great-grandfather had milk, had cattle. We would not have run out of eating meat. We would not have run out of having milk. But where is that today? And the old man, grandfather Roberto Maputa, did not charge a cent on the people who came to his homestead to drink and to eat and be merry, because he knew the cattle would just be taken to Oliphant's basin for grazing, for pastoral, benefit. And from there, when they come home, they are no longer, it's like not his, but they belong to the community, because the community fed well out of his wealth. Now, today we have got a problem that the wealthy choose to stay alone in an estate, and they have got nothing to worry them, because there they enjoy their privacy. They eat alone, they sleep alone, they listen to music alone, and this is anti-Ubuntu. It's an antithesis of Ubuntu. Even the style of how the residential system has put us. We need a village in order to practice Ubuntu. And unfortunately, we have been made weaker and weaker so much that where we stay, it's like you can't practice Ubuntu.
Quite unfortunate. May I invite, and of course I hope we are still on the sharing thing. Others should join you as well. May I invite any perspective from any of the following, Dr. Nkateko Nisi or Me Tulas Raputu, any perspective on any of the issues that have been put on the table so far? Let's have a conversation and get everybody involved. It's an invitation to any of the two. Anyone raising a hand between them? Dr. Nkateko? Madam Raput? Okay, it's fine. Let's do it this way, Mrut. We are going to, if people can, by way of raising hands.
I have raised my hand. It's too last, Ndate
Come through.
Yeah.
You are allowed to comment, madam.
Okay, thank you very much, Muruti Pataki. Thank you very much, Brapet. You also said a mouthful. For me, I'm looking at what you're saying from the point of where we have been robbed. There's someone who has just unmuted and then is disturbing. Yeah, thank you. I'm saying it is so sad that we are coming from a point of having been robbed of who we are. And when we got in the new dispensation in 1994, we thought we would be able to get out of colonialism. And one thing, because if we are still in September, that comes to mind is when Stephen Bantu Biko said, the type of a black man that we are having is an empty shell. And I guess that is where we are. We are a nation that refuses to dismantle the entire apartheid system. We have been colonized, and instead of moving forward, we have taken a deliberate position to show the whole world that we are far from who we are. Instead, we all want to be other people. And how do we do that? By simply, taking everything that is Western and practice it in our homes. So basically, we don't even have homes. We've got houses, and those houses are numbered. And that is why your neighbor does not see anything wrong when he passes and when he or she passes and does not greet you. We do not see anything wrong when in the streets that we are living, we don't know each other. We don't see anything wrong when one of us is crying. Instead of coming out as a community and see what's happening, we care. All we care about is ourselves. So we are a self-centered, selfish society. And I'm just wondering, Muruti and Brapet and Chidi and other listeners, as to how long are we going to get out of this slavery? We have inherited it and we have even legitimized it. That's why when people are getting better positions, all they do is to go to, to drive big cars. And actually, it's not even driving big cars. One is taking herself or himself into debts where you are not owning anything. You are just a debtor. The only time you own anything is when you are dead in a coffin. That coffin is your coffin. That one is sure, but you will be leaving no legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rahadi. What a great perspective. Any comment, Muruti?
Mama Chulamsindo is very, very correct. Very, very correct. As long as Black people, Africans, see their progress as backwardness, we will not make progress. Look, my uncle used to say to me, but this government says, and the kind of system we're living in, says to me, you are so disempowered that we will even build you a house. And we seem to be very happy and comfortable that I live in a house or a home that I did not build it myself. And that takes away my identity. That takes away who I am. Then you get to be surprised when children do not respect you for anything, when your wife or husband doesn't respect you for anything. It is because this power has eroded away from you. And for me, that is problematic, because all that is emphasized, it's money, 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 and power at the expense of values and customs and rituals and laws, natural laws that have made us up. And Mama Tulamsindo speaks to the issue that we don't even talk to neighbors. At the beginning, you remember I said, even the midwives are neighbors. Now, if we have come to a point where neighborhood is being repelled away, then it means we need a system that could attract neighborliness to ourselves. But it is not going to be very easy, because as Budpet has said, you've got to get rid of capitalism first before you actually bring Ubuntu. There is in no way how Ubuntu can share the same space with capitalism. That I can vouch for it. The two are just cheese and chalk. There is in no way how the other could live side by side with the other.
Thanks, Muruti. Perhaps at the level of your foundation, at some stage as the association, we should be able to engage on some aspects, because I remember there was a stage when people in Gauteng were saying, but then just give us a piece of land, because from experience you should learn that immediately after allocating an RDB house to us, we demolish it and build our own. So what we lack is the land, and the houses will be able to build, just to engage government at that level. And on this one, Murut, can I do the following? I want to be a little bit creative. There's one old man who is with us here. His name is Mahapa. By profession, he's a doctor, well-respected doctor in the province, in the country. Dr. Mahapa, may you engage Muruti on whether what we have is government that God intended us to have. I know that is Muruti, is of the view that government is established on the authority of God, but is it one that we could claim is one God would be happy with?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening,
Am I
Doctor.
audible?
Yes.
He's asking me a question that will be answered by the Reverend, you know. But I think, you know, I believe that you, Muruti Pataki, as a Reverend, I believe that, you know, as much as God has got power, the devil also has got power. So we are in a government where there's a party of the devil and the party of God. My impression is that it seems like the party of the devil is winning for more votes than the party of God. So we need to conscientize those who are in the camp of the devil that this is not the eternity. There's no eternity in the devil's camp. They should come. In summary, I say, the way you look at things, it doesn't seem like we are in Canaan. It's not the government that God intended us to have. God doesn't hate black people. And it's only Africa, where Africans are, where you find things that you find in Africa, where they take over from whites, the economy just decline, the crime grows, and everything just deteriorates from better to worse. So I think this is my own impression. I don't say it's a general impression, but my impression is, I think, is that God is not pleased with what's going on in our country. Thank you.
Muruti, Dr. Mahapa is just engaged you. You may respond.
You see, whiteness needs to be disrupted. And it cannot be disrupted by whiteness. It needs those who are oppressed to rise up against whiteness. And I agree that governments are established by God. The Bible teaches us so. However, there is a potential for governments to lose their sense of vocation and to veer away from what God has called them to do. And I agree with Dr. Mahapa that it can only be the devil. The devil is anti-goodness. It's only the devil who would come into the minds of well-meaning people and veer them off the proper way of governing. The corruption that we have today, I agree, it can only come from the devil's workshop, because God is not corrupt. The maladministration, the wastages, racism, injustice, socioeconomic imbalances, and all those things, we can put them in one basket and you will never find God amongst those things. Now, it is true, evil has got a way to multiply itself. like rice, testic rice. You know, when you put rice in a pot, you put a few dots and it comes to fill up the whole pot. Evil has got a way to multiply itself against good. And yet, goodness, it's like truth. It will always survive even in the midst of lies. Now, if we had our way right, we've got to introduce, as Madume might have seen, we've got to push our government to introduce Ubuntu as a subject of philosophy to be studied right from kindergarten, as I argued the other day, that start from kindergarten and put a curricula or a syllabus that would address philosophy. Look, I studied philosophy, but I can easily tell you who I studied. I studied René Descartes. You know, I studied Leroux. I studied Rousseau. I studied all those people who were Western philosophers. I did not study Biko. I did not study Sobukwe. I didn't study African philosophers. And what I'm saying is we have got the power as government to change even the philosophy that we study and put Ubuntu and those philosophers that appeal to Africanness as our study points and take us through kindergarten, take us through primary education level, right up to tertiary, studying Ubuntu as a philosophy of life. Because I have argued, as you might have seen in the book, in the paper, that Ubuntu is Africanness, it's a way of life. You don't have a choice. You simply live it. You don't have a choice. But there is someone who would come and make it as though you have got a choice. And that is why today we have lost it in so much that even Africanness is taught by white people. You will get very surprised that even people who write about Bogoshi Jwagasi Kukune are actually white people. They are white authors. And I'm not saying I see a lot of wrong in that. That even Bogoshi Jwarena, it's authored by others other than ourselves. So how will we get out of this quagmire? When I was at university in the 80s, one of the courses I registered was Northern Sesotho, but I studied Sesotho in English. And most of you who are in this group, you know what I'm talking about. That those of us who registered Sesotho at university or registered Sesotho at any other university, whether in UNISA or University of the North, we studied Sesotho in English. The teacher of Sesotho taught Sesotho in English. Now, there is an anomaly there. If we have not seen it there, we can't see it anywhere else. And therefore, those who are in charge of our education system should make it a point that Sesotho is taught in Sesotho. Sezulu is taught in Sezulu. Stebele is taught in Stebele. But I did a course called Comparative of African Languages. And when we did comparative African languages, we actually used English to compare the languages. I did Tsonga, I did Zulu, I did Sepedi, I did Chivenda, all in English. And that tells you how damaged I am to this day.
Sure, yeah, quite interesting. Quite interesting because there are many who say, Muruti, in line exactly with what you say. You get into university, what you call knowledge, and what they would certify you to have qualified for, never reflect your values. And you become a different human being when you get out of that institution. And it seems even 28 years later, we have not been able to start with even one project. What is the role, perhaps, on this subject, Muruti, of the church? And the subject, I mean, how we place Wotu at the center of our society. It informs the economy, it informs spirituality, it informs the economy in all aspects of life. What would be the role of the church as one segment of society?
Well, the church also needs to be helped because we need to de-whitenize Christ. Jesus Christ was not a white man. He was not European. He was born in the Middle East and went to become a refugee in Africa and lived among the Africans in Egypt. There is no reason why somebody could claim whiteness on the Lord Jesus Christ. And even if you go through his values, he was Jewish. Even if you go through his values, you read more of an African man than any other thing. So Ubuntu for me, and Reverend Dr. Mbecheni said it very well last week in his presentation, that, you know, Ubuntu defines the values of who the Lord Jesus Christ is. How else would you define somebody who never knew his own family to be father and mother, and who actually expressed it, that I have not come to you, I'm not your child. I am actually the child of this community. On the occasion when he was confronted that your mother is looking for you. And he said, no, who is my mother? My mother are these people who are sitting with me here. My father are these people who are sitting with me here. And how else would you define a person like that to be white, who comes into the community and say to them, look here, I have come so that you have life. I have come so that you get liberated. I have come so that the blind can see, the lame can walk. I am that kind of a person. How do you relate that person to capitalism? How do you relate a person who would multiply fish to feed us all when the disciples thought capitalist way and said to him, these people who are here are hungry. You need to send them away because the sun is setting. And listen to what he says in response to them. He says, no, don't send them away. Give them something to eat, because the Lord was aware that his disciples carried food provision. But then the disciple says, it is true we have little and we think it will not fit all of them. Now listen to what he does. He doesn't agree with them that he has got little. He says to them, bring that little to me, let me multiply it and feed the 1,000 people with bread and fish. How would you call that kind of God capitalist? It didn't matter. Now, your question is, how do we use his ministry? Because church is his ministry. How do we use his ministry to fight capitalism? We can. We've got to decolonize church, as Mama Tulamsindo was saying. We've got to decolonize church. We've got to take church away from whiteness and make it that which was meant to be, because it is the Lord Jesus Christ who established church. Church was not established by Rome or by European or some white people elsewhere. It was established by the Lord Jesus Christ, a boy who comes from Galilee in the rural areas of Nazareth, the rural areas of Bethlehem, which even today, when you look at it from the map, you can't find it easily. What you find easily is the United States of America. What you find easily on your map is the United Kingdom, but you battle to find Bethlehem, where our freedom as religious people or people of faith actually comes from. We need to take away church from there. That is the first step.
that is the first step. Quite interesting. do we have perhaps any person intending to engage Muruti? You can, by way of raising your hand, be recognized and engage Muruti. The intention is that the session be as interactive as any of us may participate in it. By way of raising hands, you can engage Muruti. Perhaps while some are still thinking about raising their hands, I'm not going to recognize individuals who have not raised hands from here going forward, but I'm inviting anyone to come through as we're heading towards closure. Is the last quarter of the session.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, so
no, you can come through. Let's talk. Who
okay.
can record it?
Yes. It's so interesting that Muruti Pataki is emphasizing the fact that Jesus Christ was a black boy from a rural area of Galilee. And that is, and when you try to find it, you will not easily find it. And I'm like, okay, if you are to go to the deep rural areas of Kasikukune, and you want to get someone who's, a black person out there, you're traveling, you have to navigate those roads, change. But what is interesting for me, Muruti, with Pat and the others, including Dr. Mahapa and those whom I do not know, we are 23 participants here. Jesus Christ was killed. And Jesus Christ, if I remember well, is that young boy who gave people food, including wine, such that they got drunk. And when they were drunk, they did not kill him. But when they were sober, they killed him. That's one part. And my mind then goes to Thomas Sankara, Amilcar Cabral. And there is, it is this journey that makes me to begin to think again, to say, but who are the people who are assassinated? Jesus Christ was killed. Thomas Sankara was trying by all means to say, rise up, black people, black child, rise up. Let's turn the tables around so that we are who we are. And he was killed. And we must not forget that he was also betrayed by his own. Amilcar Cabral, the same. Sabelo Pama, the same. Chris Hani, the same. Stephen Bantu Biko, the same. There is just this thing that I'm seeing. It is only today that I'm beginning to see, or the dots are now beginning to make sense, that if you rise up as a black child and begin to speak truth to power, you are running a risk of being killed. Maybe no wonder Stephen Bantu Biko says, if I am to die, I must die for the idea, my idea that I believe in, not that this idea must die. And I will pause there and allow other people just to, think loud about what we are going through here. Thank you.
Thanks. Perhaps for the sake of time, thanks, Rakhadis. For the sake of time, I see two other hands in the following order. Let's have them recognized. Mahatla will come first, and the last one would be Ndatumeyaha. Can we proceed in that sense? We are left with only 9 minutes before we are in trouble.
Tabela ka Kgoro, initially I thought I would just write my comments in the comment section, but I couldn't let this opportunity pass, more so that Muruti Pataki ka radio. So it's a pity. Kgoro Conversation, it's a virtual thing. it would have been a great honor to, to share the same space with Moruti Pataki. But more than anything else, I just want to register my comment to say that it is very heartwarming to listen to a man of faith, a man of God, speaking about decolonizing the church. He said something very profound, especially about the role of the church. So there are two things that I just want to talk about, which I'm not going to be very long. Just to say that we appreciate Kgoro Conversation to invite, a man of Moruti Pataki stature, and then also the fact that he came here and really, really opened our minds. I've always had a lot of questions with regard to the role of the church, and I'm someone who ran away from church because I could not resonate with the church, especially its role in society. But today I felt that Moruti has answered some of the questions that I had. And also, lastly, is to say that Moruti, we really appreciate your role in society as much as you have retired. But I believe that it is people like you who give us so much hope and so much sense of patriotism. And also, I recognize my doctor is here, Dr. Mahapa. Thank you for the contribution that you have made.
There you go, Dr. Moruti. We were supposed to be having that.
But
no, it's fine. Thanks. I thought I should lower the hand since I was recognized. Thanks a lot. But the previous speaker has really talked a mouthful, and I want to thank you, Matomi, and my brother Moruti Pataki for this, thought-provoking thing, talk. And I think, Matomi, we need a lot of this. Even if we need a face-to-face at some point, I know it may not be easy for you to organize. But as Biko said the other time, that Jesus Christ is not in a business to return to resolve our problems. This particular conversation, however small it is the right thing in the right direction. It is not about numbers, it's not about popularity, but whatever small thing we can do, let's continue to do it. That's how I can say it. Thanks a lot, Moruti and Matum.
Thank you, Budpet. Look, capitalism thrives on the back of the weak. And the weak are not born weak. They are weakened by systems. And once they are weakened, then the system of capitalism, which is whiteness. And here when we say whiteness, we're talking ideologically. We're not talking the color of a person. We're talking ideology. That whiteness survives where the system of capitalism has been able to weaken our cultures, to weaken our livelihoods, and to weaken our structures. Now, when we take our children and we throw them to white teachers to teach them values, we are quick to be surprised when our children act whitely. And yet, we've got institutions and systems that, in my view, we could still have control over. But as long as we look down upon ourselves and we look up to whiteness as a measure or a standard of progress and civilization, we're not going to get Ubuntu on board. And as I said, colleagues, earlier on, I said to you, you can't have capitalism and Ubuntu operating together. You can't. We've got to, when we pray, our Father which art in heaven, the prayer that the Lord Jesus Christ taught us, he says, thy kingdom come. And when he says thy kingdom come, he means a replacement of an existing kingdom. There was a kingdom, by the way, when Jesus Christ taught his disciples how to pray. He said, thy kingdom must come, so that what is happening in your space must happen here. he had realized that the empire that was in charge was a very, very wrong kingdom. And you can't have two kingdoms running parallel or running together. And that is why you will talk about the death of Jesus Christ, because those who were in charge of the other kingdom could not allow him setting up a kingdom for himself, because he was forever a threat. And then they took decision that in order, and is there in the book, in order for us to deal with this man, we must set a very good example, hang him in public, so that even his followers must never come dare say these things that he is saying to us, that he will bring our kingdom down, and in 3 days, another new kingdom will rise. These are things that brought Jesus Christ into trouble. And if you want to talk about Ubuntu, you must be ready to replace capitalism with the goodness that Ubuntu brings about. And I've already said about those things at the beginning, that we cannot continue to encourage greedy people in society. We cannot continue to encourage people killing each other because they are fighting over money and power. Those things are foreign to the concept of Ubuntu. And thank you very much for the invitation. I think I've covered enough ground by now. We're left with 2 minutes to go.
Thanks, Muruti. In history, people who have ever claimed that the church should be changed to the point of decolonization have had hardships. But here we have one of us who says that we need to change, including the church and all other institutions as well. I should take this opportunity and thank you for joining us. We were live on YouTube. You can check us on YouTube after this session. Share the link with others who might be able to follow the video. We are going to be having a launch of the manual of the expropriation bill. We show why the bill should be challenged. We'll communicate such. It's going to be physical. Mid-October, the date will be specified. We wish that you all come. Thank you very much for being with us. Mr. Malaji, any closing comments? Mr. Malaji? Hello?
Mr. Chidi.
Yes, Mr. Malaji?
Yes, no, I think time was jealous of us because of the knowledge that we got from our elders. And without any further ado, ours is to always be thankful to have such leaders in the midst of ourselves, because they're imparting something new, which is knowledge. With those words, I would like to say Raleboga Moruti and other joiners who took part in our Kgoro meeting. Le go sa re khopela re le honor our invite, and then God bless you. Raleboga.
Thank you so much. Until we meet again, we'll meet soon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks very much.